So at the request of a subscriber named Elizabeth, it sounded like she could use some cheering up, so she wants something Christmas. So this is How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Annie Proulx. Well, no, just kidding. Wouldn't that be cool, though? That would be something. This is also a coloring book. And you may laugh, but when life's getting me down, the mailman giving me static, leaving me angry notes in my mailbox or whatever, unpaid bills, I like to do a little coloring, and I have over the past year or so that I've had this. Yeah, I did that. Happy little trees. There's one lives right there. Happy little trees. So, let's see if my phone doesn't cut out while I'm recording this. Of course, this is by Dr. Seuss, as you know. Copyright 1957. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not.
To get in touch on social, and if you've got any New Year requests, get them in now. At Jenny Houston on X, it's Houston J on Instagram, and it's Jenny Houston Radio on Facebook. The email, if you prefer, jenny2x@SiriusXM.com. More from you two, going back to October for this one. It's Gloria.
Sirius XM satellite radio. Worth every penny. So, where were we here? But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Who's, staring down from his cave with a sour, Grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers, nervously drumming. I must find some way to keep Christmas from coming, for tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise. That's one thing he hated. The noise. Huh. Yeah, I know what he's talking about. And then the Who's, young and old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. And they'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. Irony. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat. And he made a quickie Santa Claus hat and a coat. And he chuckled and clucked at what a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn to the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, get up! And the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town.
I like to pursue artists, I like to meet them, I like to visit them in galleries and find out that actually contemporary culture is not really in the hands of the very rich and the museums. It's actually in the hands of all of us. We all relate to culture, fashion, photography in the same way.
See, I colored this one like last year. I'm good. Oh, it was this year, huh? April. Right about the time I started my channel. All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were all dreaming sweet dreams without care when he came to the first little house on the square. This is stop number 1, said the old Grinchy Claus, hissed. And he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue. The little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present: pop guns, bicycles, roller skates, drums. Checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimbley. There he goes with it. They don't know nothing's going on. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. Cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove. Then he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast and he saw a small Who. Little Cindy Lou Who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch, said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know, that old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot, the fake Santa Claus lied. There's a light on this tree won't light on one side, so I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, and I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head. And he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney, and he stuffed that tree up. The last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls with nothing left but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1:15 dawn. All the Who's still abed and the Who's still a snooze when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. I went to town on this one. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip top to dump it. "Pooh-pooh to the Who's," was his Grinchishly humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two, and then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, "Boo-hoo." Happy little trees. Better do one right now. Well, here we go. There's a happy little tree. He lives right here. Just a happy, happy little tree. "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so. It was merry, very. He stared down at the Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes, then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. This one would be fun to color. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons, came without tags, came without packages, boxes, or bags, and he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store.
It's Jenny with you here on YouTube. Oh, I've got another track from the wonderful album from Smith & Burroughs. Funny Looking Angels, released in 2011. This is Wonderful Life.
She likes weird stuff. This is the U2 channel on Sirius XM satellite radio that my boss pays for us, which is very nice of him. And the Grinch with his... Oh, where were we? Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys, the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. So, you know, it's a story of redemption. Redemption. Thank you for watching, listening, indulging me. Now I'm going to color in my safe space here.